wanted to talk to you. I know religion's important and all, but I think you might be taking it up.
Let's give this a bit of context. So as you may know, I like to wear... No, not this. There is a lot of mining for Bitcoin that happens over in China. Main reason is because electricity is really cheap. Due to the prevalence of hydroelectric power and China's difficulty in transferring excess electricity through a distribution network, the costs of electricity in certain areas can be heavily subsidized. That's not the only reason though. China being a place where a huge amount of chip manufacturing happens, actually had a head start or were ahead of the pack in creating more efficient miners. Back in the day, Bitcoin mining started out on a lowly CPU, moved up to a GPU, and now we've got powerful, efficient miners known as ASICs. Before I go any further, I don't want to be a xenophobe here. I really don't. Some of the Chinese businessmen that started these mining farms out there had incredible foresight into Bitcoin, in supporting the network early. They took risks, they continue to take risks with China's dodgy regulatory stance on the matter. They deserve recognition for what they've done, especially in poor areas where those villages now massively benefit from the economic growth that these mining facilities bring. They turned a bad situation into a good one. And at the end of the day, isn't that what Bitcoin's all about? In addition to the Lambos. But regardless, is this mining centralization out there a genuine threat to Bitcoin? Let's assess the level of centralization, see how bad it is. We don't know the exact percentage that localization mining happens. We don't know exactly how much happens in China, but we do know that it's a lot. This website tries to display in pie chart form companies that are mining Bitcoin. Unknown is the largest slice at 18.9. BTC.com and Antpool over here are actually the same company known as Bitmain. So together they account for 25% of all the mining that is going on in Bitcoin by just one company. Perhaps they've also hidden some of their hash power, which is in this unknown section here. We don't know, but there is a bright side. This time last year, they had 41% of the network to themselves. How did it go down to almost half today? Well, 2018 happened, and a lot of missteps, including backing Bitcoin Cash, which no doubt responsible for their economic woes they suffered during that year, their own greed, and let's be honest, sheer arrogance trying to replace BTC with BCH led to their bottom line being massively hurt. Their co-CEOs stepped down even for what I can only assume is extreme incompetence.
What the?
Anyway, Via BTC is another company which operates in China. So together we're now at like 35% at least that's occurring over there. Poolin is based in China, so we're just over half the network right now. So is F2 Pool. So we've already exceeded, even not accounting for this unknown chunk here, for over 51% of the network localized in mainland China. Some estimates put it as high as 75%. Is this really a problem though? Kind of. The thing is, China is a surveillance state, one of the most intrusive in the world. I was actually pretty shocked watching this video explaining it. Let's just look at one clip of that video.
Yeah, so I was jaywalking in Nanshan, and all of a sudden I got a fine to my WeChat.
Was it instant?
It was about 20 seconds after, I guess. And I had money in my balance, it just went straight out. And this is just the most incredible thing. It just came straight out.
It went straight out.
And that was incredible.
That's crazy.
It's true. Try to jaywalk in certain parts of Shenzhen, and the government's facial recognition will spot you. There's even a board of shame showing the faces of recent offenders.
A board of shame. That's nutty to me. The video is well worth a watch. There's the title of it. But when you understand how much surveillance China has over its citizens, then the idea of Bitcoin being prevalent out there is simultaneously ridiculous and amazing. Surprisingly, China does allow its citizens to hold cryptocurrency, but does not recognize it as official money, obviously, and citizens cannot legally use an exchange to transfer it to fiat. I think citizens are getting around that by using a VPN and going to a Hong Kong exchange, but honestly, I'm not sure about that. But back to the mining situation. Is it a problem that most of the network is based in mainland China, subject to Chinese authorities who have the power to A, ban Bitcoin mining, or B, attempt to maliciously attack the Bitcoin network? Let's discuss option A, which has already been discussed by a state planner, but that's not going to be easy for them to do.
So just imagine, for example, the ruling comes down and it says you can't do mining in China. And that goes down to the districts, and then from the districts to the smaller districts, to the cities, to the towns, and eventually some official sends a fax to the local village where they're running a mining farm off the hydro that represents 40 to 50% of the municipal income of the entire area. And they say, you must close your mine. What does the local official say? We have no mines here. So the ability to actually affect change on the ground is mediated by layers and layers and layers of bureaucracy, which are more and more corrupt. And the bigger the crisis, the easier they are to corrupt. You got to realize that these mines are quite decentralized within China, and in many cases, they provide a stream of corrupt money throughout every official in the area. The police works for them, the mayor works for them, the electricity company works for them.
So there no doubt will be many criminals made overnight if this ruling passes, but the point I want to make is Bitcoin doesn't need Chinese mining. If it gets banned out there, okay, the hash rate drops, but Bitcoin is going to continue, adjust, and continue as normal. It would technically make Bitcoin easier to attack if all those miners were switched off. So let's discuss option B. China attempts to maliciously attack Bitcoin. I just don't think this is likely at all, but let's humor the situation. Somehow, Chinese authorities raid every single mining farm in China without alerting the rest of the Bitcoin community and simultaneously see what damage they can do. Or they produce a metric ton of miners themselves and try and do it that way. Never mind the ludicrous amount of money that would take in order to do that, the ludicrous amount of electricity required, but if you could do all of that, the most you could do is double spend. Good job, guys. A double spend oversimplified is where you send Bitcoin to someone, but then also take it back. Simplest example is this illustration. As soon as the rest of the network sees what you're trying to do though, they can update the nodes and they can fork away. So there would be two versions of Bitcoin, one that just had its mining rewards shoot through the roof because we'd lost all that hash power from China, so miners are incentivized to join the new one, and not so much the Chinese version of Bitcoin. It would be like DDoSing someone. Inconvenient. Plus, hilariously, if you did own that much hash power, you're so incentivized to just keep mining. That is a lot of money. That would be a lot of time, effort, and money to achieve so very little. A 51% attack is more of an intellectual thought, an interesting idea, but in practicality, it's not at all. Proof of work altcoins though, yeah, they need to be afraid. So things really aren't as bad as they seem.
Oh, you just back up off me. You better not ever touch me in life. You understand me? What? Oh.
Plus, the rest of the world is catching up with more and more efficient miners as chips get smaller and smaller. China no longer has that competitive edge. So, while the mining centralization was ridiculous at one point, it now faces sterner competition than it ever has done, even up to 1 year ago. Honestly, the real threat from China, well, Chinese authorities, comes from stricter regulation, because a huge amount of trading volume comes from China. So, yeah, if that happened, that would be a big speed bump, but a speed bump nonetheless. I'm sorry to anyone who thought I was speaking absolute gibberish today, not understanding a single word I've said. So let's summarize. What have we learned today? Is Bitcoin perfect? Is it absolutely flawless? Zero risks involved and no real threats? Yes. As for doomsayers who say they're just going to short the hell out of Bitcoin and then dump it to zero, I don't really think that's very likely.